Ready?
Okay.
Awesome. Okay, after a half an hour of fighting with this technology, here we are. Hi, everybody. My name is Miri, and I'm so happy to be here with Caroline and our wonderful guest, Annie. I don't know that I want to even try to say your last name.
It's McNamara.
McNamara. Wow.
And do you go by Annie or Anne?
It's
It's Anne. Yeah,
okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right. It's Anne. Okay. All right. Well, I don't know why I decided to call you Annie, but Anne is good. It's awesome. But anyway, before we start, I just want to say a little bit what we do. Caroline and I, we obviously both of us, not obviously, but both of us started in real estate. I'm still doing real estate. That's how Caroline and I met. But very fast we learned that our financial supposed to be in order first. I feel that we kind of skip that. And I've seen it many times happens, especially in real estate investing groups. It's like you just want to jump in, do things, and your financial here, it's kind of lacking. So we decided, Caroline before me decided to educate herself and me kind of follow her footsteps to learn a little bit about finance and specifically where we can park our money that is secure and then we can compound it and grow it. And then we can even do more real estate deal, which I love
Mm.
because it's like the best of all world. And it's called IUL. We're not going to talk about it today. It's just because we have you. So, but today we're going to kind of move and we have Anne with us. And she is a real estate investor. So she can, there's something you want to add before we have Anne starting, Caroline?
Well, yeah, I'm grateful to know her. I was just going to add with Mary and I,
Mhm.
what really, I have 8 children. Mary has 4 kids, and we realized that this financial component is really lacking with so many people, and really wanted to educate them. But also, where do we start? And then your part of the equation is we all need to get ready to be investors. And real estate is such a great opportunity, and there's so many different aspects. And I'm excited to talk to you today because of your focus on going into communities and really strengthening communities through the real estate investing that you do. So I was just kind of looking at a background on your kind of focus because there's so many different areas of real estate investing. And so I would love for you to share just your community involvement with real estate investing and why you chose your focus, from what I understand, in just revitalizing communities through uh, real estate.
Yeah, no, thank you guys. And I think you're spot on about get your foundations right with your finances. And yeah, I think it's very wise from basic budgeting to having different pots for your money, different
Right.
safe harbors. Yeah, absolutely. So my background was I spent the first 10 years of my career working with homeless drug users in inner city areas in the north of England. And that's really kind of what got me into real estate because nobody wanted to be our landlords because we had these with thousands of homeless people coming through our doors and we were helping them to, interestingly, we were selling them a magazine. It was a street paper, selling it for, at the time it was like 30 pence, and they would sell it on the streets for £1 and keep the 70 pence. And that was the beginning. Then we did loads of financial stuff with them and helped them. That was the first step on the ladder to getting off the streets. But we kept being kicked out of. Landlords would love our deposits and love to get us in the door, but the minute they realized uh, that we were real and actually, yeah, people were coming and going, 14 hours a day. And they started to get complaints from neighbors. They were like, "Yeah, we're out you go. As soon as we can cut the lease, we would." So we got tired of that. So we started to look at investing in business in buildings, and it was always in the rundown parts of town where we could afford it. And so we bought individual buildings. We found we had like gap funding issues. So you could buy them cheap enough, but the rehab was so high. And so then we started sort of pitching to different government agencies to cover the gap funding because it was like pump priming the neighborhood, because we would do an amazing job with these buildings. We didn't just like, it wasn't just a lick of paint, it was really design-led good stuff. And very thoughtfully designed around one entrance and exit, no second class citizenry, all that kind of stuff. So they were very, we had, just put it this way, we had lots of visitors from royalty to prime ministers to all that kind of stuff, because it was an icon of how to integrate design into cities. And then that eventually got me working with bigger investors and developers around city center, how you could, they suddenly go, these skanky little organizations can actually bring value. And they were like, this whole market, I wonder if we could do something. So we were kind of a social impact integrator, if you like, to bigger developers. And that's when I learned a lot of tricks and methodologies and how you could make big money and small money, and recognizing the power of an end user together. So then I'm in Florida now. I've only been here a couple of years, so I'm still finding my feet in a lot of ways. It's so much the same, but so many differences. So I'm focusing on one small town. I did quite a lot of research before I went there. I've bought one building. I'm doing it up at the moment. And I'm looking at a couple of other cash flowing buildings locally, and I'd like to concentrate efforts.
That's awesome.
I,
So why
well,
Florida?
yeah, well, I was just going to say that it's what also impresses me about that is oftentimes we wait for other people to kind
Mhm.
of step in and solve these problems. And I love the fact that you saw a problem and then are looking at uh, getting just working together with the community, because everyone at the end of the day does want to see a solution to getting people off the streets and into housing. I've heard that that's really it's such a hard hurdle to get from that point
Yes, the
to the
transaction,
housing.
transaction. Hmm.
Yeah, but also that you've really developed the ability to work with a lot of different people in this process.
Yeah, I mean, I still lack the level of patience I should have evolved at this stage.
Hmm.
Because what I find the most frustrating is there's so much time spent whinging and whining about the state of the town or the state of the problem. And most of us is massively overcomable. I mean, I would not pick a town that I thought was irretrievable. And towns become irretrievable when they have big, huge arterial roads running through, cutting them up, or the city is beyond retrievable. There's so much fraud going on. It's just
Yeah.
institutional, all that kind of stuff. Most towns are just a bit flabby around the edges, no innovation, complacency, that sort of stuff. But they're a long way from irretrievable. But the way some people talk about them, you would think that we're talking about some crazy, rundown, terrible place. And we're not. And it's just, it's that if you think you can or if you think you can't, you're probably right.
Yeah. No, but that's true. If you can, you can't. If you say you can, you're right. If you say you can't, you're right too.
Exactly.
It's really mindset, really, in the end of the day. And what
Yeah.
you're into that's awesome. But I was just curious, there's any reason why Florida? Just because it's warm and nice, unlike London, England?
Absolutely. Yes, that's
Okay,
it.
makes sense.
And it's on the
Totally
East
different.
Coast.
Yes, I understand. We both live, by the way, I don't know if you knew, but we live in Salt Lake City.
Okay.
It's beautiful. It's actually very beautiful. It's the winter
Yeah.
is far better than the east side, the northeast side of the country, because that's where I lived before. So it's beautiful. So we love
So,
it.
yeah, the other thing I was thinking too, I do this annual bike ride across Iowa. And one of the interesting things about it is that we go through these small communities that are really just, yeah, just they're kind of a sorry feeling to them, you know. They were, and like you say, there are these communities all over, and part of it is Yeah, and I've often wondered there's some really beautiful architecture to these little town squares and to these old brick buildings that were built back in the turn of the 1900s or even in the 1800s. And I often think, what would it take to revitalize them and make them, like you were saying, community centers where people want to gather and support local businesses and things. And so, yeah,
Well,
so
there is a formula.
Okay.
It's not rocket science. I'm not going to remember everything off by heart, but I mean there are some no-nos that if the place has been properly divided by a big arterial road in key areas,
Hmm.
it's almost doomed unless you can get rid of that. Uh, if it's gone too far with its politicians and leadership, I mean, it's doable for if you're public sector, but not for the likes of us in private sector. But the key things that you're looking for is owner occupiers in the buildings doing their thing. You've got a handful of successful businesses. You don't need the whole thing to be successful. You've got buildings that are not too far gone. If the place is connected, it's fascinating about the bike routes. They're becoming an increasing value add because
Hmm.
it's bringing traffic to the town. So connectivity, like a big one of the tricks is you leverage the other towns, particularly if
Yeah.
they have
Mhm.
tourism. You're promoting your town there because people want to, if tourists are in a location, they're not going to stay in the same town for
Mhm.
their 6 days. They're looking for other things to do. They don't even know. And you're kind of not going to risk a 20-mile ride to go to nowhere if it hasn't been promoted to you.
Exactly.
So it's connectivity is a big part of us. You want it to be connected by road, bike, rail would be
House.
great, river, that kind of stuff. Um, but most of the work is in doing the connections, like promoting to the bike tours, promoting to the local towns. And then another thing is, uh, I think I got it from a book, but I claim it for myself. Small acts of civic pride.
Hmm.
It's things like regular small scale events, um, digging the weeds out of the flower beds, picking
Yeah.
the trash up, cleaning
Hmm.
the windows
Yeah.
for empty buildings, putting up temporary transfers or
Yeah.
like things that are happening here.
Hmm.
It's that if you're a fleeting visitor, you think, oh yeah, there's a bit of life here. I might come back.
Yeah.
Rather than I'm confirmed in knowing that there is no life here.
Nowhere.
I'm not coming back.
Exactly. So, what I'm curious, because obviously you said you have a formula how you find a place, which makes total sense. W- Walk us through a little project. How do you start it? What do you do? What you creating? How does it look like in the end? I'm very curious.
Yeah, well, this is where it's really interesting because, and I've learned you have to watch that it's not all about you.
Mhm.
So what I will do is, and I'm so grateful that I had this education. It was almost sort of beaten into me working with big scale developers where they wouldn't go. So
Yeah.
you don't fall in love with somewhere just for the architecture, which is a a fault.
Yeah.
And then get your criteria right. So I'll just tell you what I did in the town that I've chosen to invest in. I spoke to the owner occupiers many, many times. I didn't say, "Oh, I'm thinking of investing here." I just
Wow.
chitter
Hmm.
chatted with them. I
Hmm.
wanted to
Build
see
relationship.
a relationship,
Yeah.
yeah. And I
Mhm.
wanted to test if there was like one town that I was interested in. I spoke to the city manager. She was so negative. I just thought, I
Forget
can't be
it.
bothered. World's full of small towns. I don't need to be bothering myself with yours. So everyone I spoke to had a really good attitude. There was a bit of negativity, but not that big a deal. I like the architecture. I like the size of the buildings. I found a building. I did seller finance on it.
Mhm.
And the one thing I wasn't aware of was I hadn't done enough research on was the amount of difference between commercial and residential construction regs,
Yeah.
construction
I mean,
permit
Permits.
specification.
the permits is all that you have to
Yeah,
ensure.
the extra level you have to go to even for a small building
Yeah.
because it's considered commercial. And if it's on the main street, most main streets want you to have a retail at the front, which will automatically make it commercial. So that
Mhm.
added a lot of costs that I hadn't really factored in. But now what I'm doing is we've done lots of small acts of civic pride. We've done up windows of abandoned places. We've
Mm.
helped people organize events. We're working with people to get a whole calendar of events. We're going to be promoting
Nice.
some of those events. I want to organize a Christmas market,
Absolutely.
as in a big one, which is also on private land, which means we don't even have to go through permits.
Yeah.
Not that the city is a problem. The city's great, which is another thing you have to
Yeah.
make sure of. Um, like I went to see the mayor, spent quite a lot of time with her, and I went to see the head of planning and zoning because if they were behind the curve, you want to get out of there fast. And
Yeah.
they were brilliant.
Oh,
Um,
good.
so even though the whole political makeup wasn't excellent, uh, which is why it's where it is, there was enough there that I think the private sector, the investors can pretty much do it on our own.
Mhm. I like the idea that you're creating events because we have so many holidays anyway. You have 4th of July, you have all those events in the calendar that you can actually bring the people together. That's what I love about it. It's really is a community thing, is to bring people out of their home and mingle together. And I think this is so lack. And I can say it because I'm from a different culture, and that's how we live. We live with people in each other life. And here it's very much America is a little bit different. But I love the idea. What do you
Yeah,
think?
and this is the learning curve.
Mhm.
You can't go in and just say, I'm going to do loads of events. You have to say what's going on, who's running everything, how can I help you?
Yeah.
There was and is loads of events going on. It just wasn't being promoted
Mm.
very well. You had to be in the know to know, and you might get an alert the day before, and you're like, why isn't this on Eventbrite? Why isn't this being promoted to all the local towns? All this kind of stuff. So you just say, well, you do this, I'll do this bit.
And there wasn't a problem with you kind of being an outsider. Oftentimes, these
Mhm.
smaller communities are generational, generations of people that have
Mhm.
lived there. So I can see the value of establishing those relationships with people who are in the decision-making
Mhm.
responsibility, like you said, the mayor and the zoning and planning, etc. But were they able to accept you fairly readily with new ideas coming into town of just wanting to support their community?
I think so. I might be deluding myself, but I think so because so far it's pretty benign. I'm not getting involved in politics. I'm not trying to, change traffic flow or get rid of cars or anything like that. It's just like, let's make gardens prettier, let's make windows prettier, let's do more events, let's do up a building that was sitting there empty for ages that I'm making happen. So far it's all upside. There's no like you've come here and created all these problems.
So I guess then the other part of it, because I'm thinking, wow, all of us live in somewhere where there's some small community that would benefit from your a type of investment of time like you've done, as well as just uplifting the overall just appearance of the town. So what's like your return on that time investment? Where is there any way of like I'm thinking, where do you make money in all of that?
Mhm.
Yeah, you don't really. What you do is you have to sort of accept that it's a contribution to increasing capital value. And I don't think I would have done it if I hadn't seen how it had worked
Okay.
elsewhere. You know, and it can start with a couple of big deal things, but eventually everything gets handed over to the events planning crew. The windows get taken back by the owners. I do a lot of social media out of it,
Mhm.
and that helps with all my messaging. So I see it more as content. you're right though. You have to be careful that you don't get completely sucked in by it.
Mhm.
I'm constantly sort of pulling myself back. This is what I mean about there's certain sort of um, magic that you kind of have to allow. So
Mhm.
it's not the same as saying, I've got this loss, I'm building this small multifamily on it, and here's my project plan, and I'm sticking to it, and I'm not going to be one day over late. You kind of have to go with the flow. So it's
Yeah.
really important that you're able to slot other stuff into your life, um, and not end up as in other real estate activity that you're doing
Yes. Hmm.
and sort of initiate and withdraw and capture everything. So you have the social, which is
Yeah.
really valuable.
Yes. So,
Mhm.
so what are you using those building for then? Unless I missed it, what is it used? The use usually is.
It's in the middle of rehab at the moment, and it's going to be three apartments and one store.
Okay, three apartments. So it's kind of on the top, and then one
One
store.
at the bottom,
It
two at the
will
top, one at
be
the bottom, and a store at the front.
okay.
So did you come up with the finding the person who would want to occupy that location for the business, or was that something that just naturally happened as they found out you were kind of rehabbing that building?
Yeah, well, it's still in rehab at the moment, and I've had approaches already,
Okay,
so that's good. And
that's
I
what you
was
want, right?
exactly, and
Mm-hmm.
I was a bit worried about the ground floor. And somebody said something to me about that town is full of empty storefronts, and I thought, I know, I'm in that town like three times a week. And I thought, no, it can't be. So I actually just walked downtown and thought, it's not. It's full of empty storefronts with undeveloped buildings.
There you
Any
go.
building that is developed is fully occupied.
Good. Okay.
This goes back to my first building that I ever did in the UK. It's the gap funding. It's the
Mm.
difference between purchase and rehab
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
ARV gap.
Uh-huh.
That is the problem. That's why people don't want to do it.
Yeah.
If we could find a gap, again, we were public sector funded in our first building in it was called the Northern Quarter in Manchester. That would have been one of the anchor buildings in the Northern Quarter. 10 buildings later, they didn't have to do it. 10
Mm.
buildings later, ARVs were where they should have been.
Yeah.
So it's pump priming. If we could
Mhm.
get that, I doubt we'll get it with Elon Musk's
Yes.
approach. But
Well, that would be a good idea. Yeah. Maybe we can approach him somehow. But I
yeah.
wonder,
But I think my family lives in a small town in Iowa, and it's always been, it's always, the motto was shop in this community first before you go to the big city that's 20 miles away or whatever. And there was always a big campaign for that. But people want to take pride in their community. And sometimes people are better worker bees than they are initiators of
Yes.
how that's going to
there
work.
you go. That's
So
a
I
good
think
point.
I think I see you as being the one that spearheads the worker bee coalition, so to speak. It's someone that has the energy and also the vision. I think that's why Elon Musk is definitely a visionary, not
Yeah.
to mention he comes up with solutions, which is helpful, but I see where your experience. So are you planning to like stay in that community? So when you get your first building, then you move to the second building because people see that, wow, look what she did with this building.
Mm.
And then you have more, and like you said, there's a lot of empty buildings on that main street. Would you continue to work at that or?
Yeah, there's two buildings I have my eye on. They're cash flowing. I want my next one to be cash flowing straight away.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
the next problem that I've come across is so many investors, so many funders don't want to fund in small towns.
Yeah.
They just fund in towns of 25,000 or under, as in it's a blanket no. We won't even put pen to paper on
Very
underwriting.
right. Right.
Um, Even in towns under 75,000, they're not too keen because of comps.
Yeah.
And I mean, I get it. I see so many deals going on under the table and a lot of stuff not going on, Zillow, even on rentals and that kind of stuff. But that's why I think I was sort of tearing ahead to do this to do my next one, but I'm going to take a step back and see if I can raise a different form of capital
Okay. Well,
to
that
get
makes
my next
sense.
one, because I'm not going through pitching and pitching and pitching to people, trying to convince them that, you know, the pro formas are real and I've got evidence of it and all the rest, when they just it's just not their comfort zone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't you have people? I mean, excuse me, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just wondering, with all your, if you're doing social media and people seeing, you would hope that people would come say, well, I want to be part of that.
Yeah,
I want to be part of it. This is awesome. So that would be great, right? That would be the perfect world, I guess.
it would. It would. Yeah.
So interesting. Yeah, maybe it would happen. Hey, this is this is your first one in the United States, right?
Yes. Yeah. My first mixed use anyway. Yeah.
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 Well, I was even thinking that, I mean, part of it is you have to see someone doing it and having success because everyone, like most investors aren't just doing one property at a time, right?
Yeah.
They could be doing the bigger things in the bigger cities and meanwhile funding a smaller project somewhere else that can be building up. Like this isn't for generally speaking, I can imagine this isn't going to be the primary source of income for an investor for this to work, right? I'm thinking that you have other things going on in
Yes.
other places
That
Yes.
was
that
my
have the
next
cash
question.
flow, right?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. The usual mix of fix and flips, and I'm also beginning to look at co-living.
That's what I'm focusing on too, by the way.
Yeah.
With my little team, we are my partner and we have an underwriter. Actually, he's from Iowa, by the way, Caroline. I never
Oh,
told you that. Awesome, awesome young fellow that's hungry and learning, and he does all our numbers, which I don't want to do. So it's not my thing. So yeah, so that's what we're focusing to on co-living. I think it's it's a strategy just really needed again with the economy going the way it is. People cannot, afford to rent a whole house. And
Yes.
when they're single and they don't really need to, and why not? It's awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's the other things that you're doing. Any more?
Yes, and also I think what's interesting with small towns, and I haven't got there yet, but I've started to see it, is there's some nice cash flowing multifamily, small,
I'm
messy,
sure.
messy multifamily that
Messy.
I would
Okay.
love to unmessy, you know. And there's also some interesting businesses, you know, that are
Mm.
classically coming to the end of the life of the owner.
Oh yeah, that
You know,
can be like unloading and wanting to just relax.
yeah, yeah. So it's a great way to be in and out of businesses and see what's going on, particularly when you're doing rehabs and you know, you're in and out of different, roofing, and you can see how people are operating and who's got good systems, and so it's a good harvesting ground for that.
Oh, good.
well, and
Oh,
doing the fix and flips, as you were mentioning, is also the opportunity to see who you would want to hire for the other jobs that you're doing, right? Is because that's
it's
also part of the challenge I'm sure you've had moving to another country is who's my crew that I can count on to
yeah.
show up and do the job adequately that I would want to hire again for something else.
Oh, it's heartbreaking. I've never known anything like it. Never known anything, and it's just heartbreaking. A GC that was recommended to me has just blocked me. I
Oh,
just called her
really?
once. I just called her once and texted her once, and I'm now blocked.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh. But you know what? Being in this space and doing fix and flip as well as Caroline did some, and talking to another very good friend here locally that doing them, and actually she's in the middle of two, and they're horrible. And she's had a crew. She literally had crew, but something happened. She had to get rid of somebody, and then the other person was worse. I think it comes with the territory. It
It
really
does.
is. I mean, contractor are very challenging human beings.
Yes.
You can't really rely on them, even if they are reliable. You just really, really manage them, and it's exhausting, really, actually.
Yeah.
So that's why I love doing them, but I don't think I would like to do like 4 or 5 at a time. It would kill me, I think. I said, no,
Yeah.
thank you. I need to have quality of life. So if I do one and a quarter or two a year, I think I'll be fine. I don't need more than that. So yes. And I guess we can't ask you where you're doing it in Florida. Is it kind of a secret
No, it's
or?
not. No, the town I'm focusing on is Palatka. in
Palatka, where is it?
Palatka. Yeah, it's between Gainesville, St.
East.
Augustine, Jacksonville, and not too far from Daytona. It's on the
Okay, so it's
Salt
the east
River.
side, right?
Pardon?
It's more the east side of
Yes.
okay. Because
Yeah.
when I travel to Florida, I usually on the west side. My
Yeah.
family in Naples, I have friends all the way up to Tampa, so I don't go much to the other side
Yes.
unless I go to Fort Lauderdale or something like that. Which yeah, that's
No,
awesome. Wow.
I would love to have you back on in another little
Yes.
bit and just see how it's going, get an update on
Yeah.
what you're doing. But I think it's just wonderful because to just hear about someone that has a passion for revitalizing these small communities, because there's just so many throughout the entire nation, that just they need someone that has a vision, and also just you've learned the conversations. I mean, it's always a work in progress to find people you want to continue working with and catch your vision that you have. But also it's always great to have a breath of fresh air coming into town and saying, here's what I've done in other places, here's how I've gone about it, and yeah, and I'd love to have an update.
Yes,
That would be
absolutely.
great. And
We will.
we run workshops. So our next one is in on March the 20th and 21st in Palatka. So we take you through the town and show you different
Oh,
things
that's awesome.
doing and mistakes that have been made and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, and if anybody's and what's been really great about that is the two guys were at the last workshop who are working on their small towns and they're going great guns.
Oh,
Um,
fantastic.
so,
That's
it's
awesome.
really good because like we will probably band together about this finance thing, this capital raise thing, and crack that. And what's the other thing I was going to say? Yeah, so the what's great is when one of us there's always a good case study emerging. So like
Mm,
James was struggling to get a really good seller finance deal. Now he's got that off the ground. That's for a key building that will sort of change the town.
mhm.
Um, Chad did too much social media at my behest, and that alerted too many people to hold on to their properties.
Oh
So
my gosh. So you have to be a balance there. That's what
yeah,
you said. Okay.
exactly.
Clearly over. Well, anyway, we don't want to hold you because we're on
Yeah.
top of the hour because you have, and thank you for understanding.
No
Yes.
Uh,
worries.
and then we'll send you the recording as well, and we're definitely gonna have you. And
Great.
Excellent.
if I come to
So
your area,
lovely
I'm gonna,
talking to you, ladies.
yes, we
Yes,
will
thank
come.
you so much. Have a good rest of your day. And yeah, now I want to go on Google Maps and
Yeah.
learn a little bit more about that community. But thank you for all that you're doing
Thank
and for
you.
your time
Thank you,
today.
guys.
Bye
Take,
Thank
bye.
you.
take care.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Stop recording. That was lovely. Thanks God. Oh my